and welcome to the first of 4 programmes from Club 100's race day coverage of our Blue Ribbon Sprint Championships from the picturesque Whilton Mill Karting Circuit in Northamptonshire, which is just a 10-minute drive from the home of British motorsport at Silverstone. This first programme brings all the action as it happened from round 4 of our top invitational championship, the Premier Sprint class. We have 2 heats, a championship scoring pre-final and a trophy final coming up. In terms of the championship, after 3 rounds, Anwar Smith, new to the class this season, has made the strongest start with wins at Butmore Park and Ella Park and plenty of podium finishes in between. The Baby Prem has a 16-point advantage over reigning champion Ian Blake. Close behind is another Baby Prem, Steve Brown, who won the pre-final at the last round at Red Lodge. However, the man in form is Matt Brooks. He won the trophy final at Red Lodge, but is missing from the top 10 after skipping the opening round in February at Butmore Park. He'll have to wait for drop scores to come into play later in the season to shoot him into the top 10, although it's a tough and highly competitive class for sure, so there are no guarantees. So today's format then, the Heat 1 grid is generated randomly, Heat 2 will be its reverse. Points from the heat set the grid for the pre-final, and a driver's fastest lap time set the grid positions for the main trophy final. Both finals count towards the championship, and the driver with the best 16 results from the season's 22 finals will be the 2015 Premier Sprint champion. On to Heat 1 then, in pole position, Callum McGregor on the front row with him Stephen Jennings on row 2, Freddie Gallagher and Lee Clackett on row 3, Steve Brown and Stephen Hicks. On row 4, Stuart Martin and Red Lodge winner Matt Brooks. On row 5, Jonathan Lister and Darren Teal. This grid is 23. Pole is on the right as they come towards us into turn 1 because it's a left-hander, and it's a fearsomely fast first corner complex, left then right and then uphill to Christmas Corner, which is a prime overtaking spot. Rolling up, looking for the green light, over start finish, it's red, it's green, and we're racing at Whilton Mill. Charging into turn 1. And they've all made it through, just about. On board with Chris Hansen, we're looking at the back of Ray Norris, Steve Bartlett in the red, and it's McGregor ahead of Gallagher down the inside. Stephen Hicks on Stuart Martin, 3 wide, they've just about all made it through. Back on board with Hansen, you can see how tight it is. Championship leader Anwar Smith ahead of us there, down into Ashby. There's often trouble down here, but they've made it through. Extra runoff on the exit of Ashby. Down into Chapman, and Gallagher's looking down the inside of Stephen Jennings. Can he get it done? He can't. And there's more battling behind. Darren Teal leading this second group down into the boot section. It's a tricky area, and they're 2-3 wide in places. There's contact. They've all made it through. Scott Martin runs out wide. Reigning champion Ian Blake carries the number 1 plate, of course. The scoring system determines your grid position for the pre-final. It's all about gaining positions rather than winning this heat, although you wouldn't know it from watching. Coming up to Christmas Corner then, it's McGregor ahead of Brown. Stephen Jennings and Gallagher down the inside of Lee Clackett, trying to hold him off, and Lister's going to run round the outside. Oh, he's caught up behind him, and he's collected. Pete O'Connor. Lee Clackett keeps going. Pete O'Connor is as good as out of this heat. Down the inside, Ian Blake on Stuart Martin. Picks up a spot. That moves him into about 10th place. He started 12th on the grid, so he's making progress, and that really is the name of the game here. So coming down into the boot section, turn left, right across the toe, and then right again, fearsomely fast, flat out, right-hander. There's a good deal more runoff now. Some of the teeth has been taken out of Whilton Mill with concrete runoff, but it's still fierce, and it will bite you if you get it wrong. So it's McGregor holding off Steve Brown. Stephen Jennings sticks his nose in, side by side, pod to pod, through the kink, across Inkermans. We're running the international circuit. That's normally a hairpin for the Zulu version, but here it's just a flat out right-hander. Matt Brooks goes past Stuart Martin, who's struggling in this first heat to hold off the people behind him. Well, he's got that position back. Palmvia Najjar down the inside of Darren Teal. That's for 6th place, and Palmvia started in 13th, so he's making fine progress in the early going here. Jack Harding on the bumper of Matt Brooks, looking for a way by. They're currently circulating in 11th and 12th places. Now, Palmvia, having got to the front of this queue, is now under pressure once again from Darren Teal. Ian Blake, Lee Clackett, Stuart Martin and Matt Brooks. Teal to the inside, can't get it done. Brooks goes past Stuart Martin as well. It's McGregor ahead of Brown and Jennings still down at Ashby. Here comes Ian Blake down the inside of Darren Teal. That's for 7th place. And Jack Harding has got past Stuart Martin as well. Brooks to the inside of Clackett, side by side, giving him just enough room. Harding down on the grass, and there's more contact with Stuart Martin as Scott Martin comes through, and Stuart has to take to the grass. Brooks to the inside of Clackett, down into the boot, and that's a clean move. Oh, Bartlett makes it 3 wide and collects Dan Milner and Jay Elliott. I think Elliott's managed to keep going, but Dan Milner's parked at the side of the road, and don't think this is a free-for-all. We have a penalty system at work. Clerks and observers calling penalties, which are notified to drivers at start-finish by the machine, affectionately known as RoboMake. Oh, and there's probably another one there. Contact on McGregor from Stephen Brown. So Brown moves to the head of the queue. Jennings looking to the inside down at Ashby, can't get it done. Jonathan Lister through in 3rd place, Gallagher in 4th. McGregor fortunately still running. Jennings sticks his nose in at Parker. That'll be a chance for Lister down at Chapman's, and he's through. So Jonathan Lister moves into 2nd in this first heat. Gallagher looking for a way by as they go into the boot section. And McGregor is coming back to them as well. Behind them, Parnveen Ajar and Ian Blake. Gap then to Teal, Brooks and Clackett. Gap to Harding. I can tell you that Steve Bartlett has been excluded from the race result after that contact that collected Dan Milner. Steve Brown has picked up a 4th place penalty as well, presumably for that contact on Callum McGregor up at Christmas. Club 100 promotes close, hard, fair racing, but it is fair racing and penalties will be called. Ian Blake just overtaking Parnveen Ajar. He moves into 6th place, started 12th on the grid. Good progress for the champion, and there's time still to run down Freddie Gallagher. Down into Ashby. Jay Elliott passes Bartlett, who now is over the grass. Not that it's going to matter. Presumably he's been informed that he's been black flagged. Ray Norris to the inside of Lee Hackett down at Chapman's, and this is a chance for Chris Hansen, who we ride with, into the boot section. Lee Hackett goes narrow to hold him off. That'll throw him out very narrow into the toe, and it has. And here comes Chris Hansen on the crisscross. Classic Whilton Mill boot action move. And Chris moves into 16th place. That's from 23rd on the grid. Again, that is good progress in a Premier Heat. Down the inside for the lead. Jonathan Lister can't get it done. Ian Blake picks off Callum McGregor. This has been a good heat for Ian Blake. Crisscross on for Gallagher, maybe down at Ashby. On Lister, yes it is. Parnveen forcing a pass on Callum McGregor. Hard but fair. Across to Parker, swing left and now downhill into Chapman's. And Gallagher forcing a pass on Stephen Jennings. It's getting a little bit rough in here at the front of the field. Jockeying for position, but it's Brown, Lister, Jennings to the inside of Gallagher, runs him out wide. A chance for Blake to do the pair of them, and he has. Gallagher down the grass and lent on by Parnveen Ajar in the pit bend. A waving of arms, and Brooks gets his elbows in to Freddie Gallagher and gets put on the grass for his pains. Too wide into turn 1 is tricky at the best of times, and usually requires cooperation that's in short supply in this heat. So we're into the final lap. We've got about half a lap to go. Still time to pick up a spot. Gallagher still running, holding off Darren Teal, trying to find a way back past Lee Clackett. Parnveen Ajar to the inside of Jennings, and that's for 4th place. Just one more trip through the boot complex. Steve Brown leading out Jonathan Lister. Lister's going to try the crisscross through the last corner. Can he get it done? I don't think he can. Steve Brown wins the first heat on track, but loses it with his penalty. Jonathan Lister takes the win ahead of Ian Blake, Parnveen Ajar, Steve Brown and Lee Clackett in 5th. 45 minutes have passed since Heat 1. We're now getting ready for Heat 2. We flip around the Heat 1 grid, so this time it's Chris Hansen in pole position, ahead of Paul Jennings. On row 2, Steve Bartlett and Lee Hackett. Row 3, Ray Norris, Dan Milner. Row 4, championship leader Anwar Burrell-Smith with Jay Elliott, Jack Harding and Scott Martin on row 5. Parmveen Najjar and Ian Blake once again on row 6. It's 23 on the grid. We're into the boot section. The pace car will pull off, trying to slow the field down for that cavalry charge into turn 1. And what a charge it can be. Grippier tyres this season, half a second faster, making turn 1 basically flat out, waiting for that green light. We're racing, and Hansen has got the whole shot ahead of Steve Bartlett. Jennings down in 4th place behind Ray Norris. They've all made it through, up to Christmas Corner. Now this can get tricky, jockeying for position, looking for a lane. All going narrow, there was contact there. I think Dan Milner was pushed into Anwar Burrell-Smith, who's on the grass. Oh, and Matt Brooks is hooked up behind Steve Hicks. I would be very surprised if this doesn't get waved off. Well, the back of the field has decided they've had enough, and everybody else has as well. Yellow flags are out. The regrade flag is showing at start-finish. It's a tight schedule crammed with racing on a Club 100 race day, so this heat has lost a lap off its race length. It's now a 7-lap heat for the restart. Here we go then. Chris Hansen controls the pace once again. Paul Jennings on his outside, down into turn 1. Oh, Bartlett comes across on Jennings and puts him on the grass. Well held there by Paul Jennings to sort that one out on the grass with slick tyres. Up to Christmas Corner, Bartlett in second behind Hansen. Ray Norris, look how narrow Anwar Burrell-Smith goes to make sure he gets in and out of Christmas Corner on this visit. Side by side, and Hicks is on the grass again through Inkermans, coming back through the plastic barrier, but they're all still running. Ian Blake down the inside of Scott Martin for 11th place. Martin down the grass. Stuart Martin looking at the inside of Steve Brown. The think signal there given by the champion to the drivers behind him. There's not a great deal of thinking going on. So it's Hansen, Bartlett, Norris, and I think Steve Bartlett's picked up a penalty for that start manoeuvre on Paul Jennings. Something of a chop across. He'll be notified shortly over start finish, which we pass under. In the left-hander, right side by side, Scott Martin, Stuart Martin. With a Hackett and a Clackett, it can get confusing. Jay Elliott ahead of Pete O'Connor, who we ride with through the kink. Jay Elliott up to 8th place with that pass a lap earlier on Peter. Lee Hackett down the inside of Jack Harding, gives him room on the exit, and Harding will go back through. 3 away at the front, gap to Parmveen Najjar in 4th. Harding down the inside of Burrell-Smith in Chapman's, and it's a good clean move and he's through. And Anwar's on the defence to hold off Lee Hackett into the boot section. Now can he hold him off, or will the crisscross be on for Lee Hackett? Oh, well, Anwar's clever enough and he's gone narrow round the toe to hold the spot through the last corner. McGregor under pressure from Gallagher. We're on to lap 3 of this 7-lap heat. Harding takes a look over his shoulder. They all do. They always do this. It's almost like muscle memory. It's a habit, a tick the drivers have up to Christmas Corner. Who's coming from behind? Burrell-Smith looks both ways, goes half a cart width narrow. Blake to the inside of O'Connor. Down at Ashby, and it's a good clean move again. And Blake moves into the top 10 from his grid 12 start. Jay Elliott to the inside of Lee Hackett down at Chapman's. And Hackett will be slow off the corner, a chance for Lisser to go round the outside. Hackett makes his car a little bit wider. Holds him off. Oh, down the inside, sticks his nose in when the chance was on. Ian Blake tried to move past Jonathan Listener for 9th place, and he's done it. And this could be a chance for Pete O'Connor into turn 1. Steve Brown sticks his nose in. It's so tricky through there. It really is only 1.5 carts wide at best. Blake on the defensive to hold off Listener. O'Connor tries to get a position back from Steve Brown, and I think he has. Matt Brooks looks in and takes a spot as well. Blake to the inside of Hackett, down at Ashby. Across to Parker, across a hillside. It's deceptive, but it really does make the carts behave differently in different corners, depending on which way across the slope you're going. Matt Brooks started 16th, he's up to 11th. Good progress, but not as good as Jonathan Listener here. He started in 15th and he currently runs in 9th. So coming round to start lap 5, Chris Hansen has a 0.2 of a second lead over Ray Norris. Parmveen Najjar in 3rd. Steve Bartlett coming under pressure now from Jack Harding on the run up to Christmas. Bartlett takes a look over his right shoulder. Harding comes anyway. Good late hard move, and that's clean. Clean as a whistle there from Jack Harding. He moves into the top 4. Defending down to Ashby. Narrow. That might be a mistake. Might give Bartlett a chance to come back through. Pete O'Connor loses out to Matt Brooks and to Steve Brown. Down at Chapman's. Scott Martin has moved on to the bumper of Pete O'Connor. Into the boot section, Harding and Bartlett. Just a little bit loose there on the turn into the right-hander. The downhill slope helps to put him back on his bumper. Across the inside curb, a little bit more run-off than they used to be. Has made that corner flat out as well. Down into turn 1. So basically flat from the toe of the boot to Christmas corner. Closing stages of this second heat. Scott Martin to the inside of Dan Milner, I believe for 13th place. Just about gets it done into Winkerman's. Ray Norris has sat on the bumper of Chris Hansen, waiting for a mistake rather than pressing the point. Parveen Ajar, I don't think it's going to catch him in time. O'Connor looking at the back of Jonathan Lister. That's 9th place ahead of him. Lister goes narrow-ish into the boot. Misses his apex just a little, or certainly takes a late one. There's nothing O'Connor can do. He'll have to follow all the way to Christmas corner, unless there's a mistake on the exit of turn 1. Uphill, and Chris Hansen has got a car length or 2. I think he's got this one in the bag, barring a mistake. Across the kink, flat through Winkerman's. Hard on the brake into Ashby, and the corner sort of falls away on the exit, hence the additional concrete that's been put in. But it has made the corner more open and quicker. Downhill then to Chapman's. Here comes Ian Blake looking for 6th place down the inside of Earl Smith, down into Chapman's, and Jay Elliott will come through with him if he can. Ray Norris shows the nose to Chris Hansen, but it's not a serious attempt to overtake. This one is though. Elliott to the inside of Burrell Smith. Steve Brown cuts back tighter to cut across, and Matt Brooks sticks his nose in and goes through. Chris Hansen takes the win in Heat 2 from Ray Norris and Parveen Ajar. It's 30 points for a win, 29 for second, 28 for third, etc, etc, all the way down to 1 point for 29th from those 2 heats. When those points are being added together, it's Parveen Ajar in pole position, ahead of reigning champion Ian Blake for this pre-final. This is point scoring, 130 points for the win here, 127 for second. Jonathan Lister and Steve Brown on row 2. Jack Harding, Heat 2 winner Chris Hansen on row 3. Anwar Burrell Smith, Ray Norris on row 4, Matt Brooks and Lee Clackett on row 5. The finals are 10 minutes in duration, so that should be just enough to get us 12 laps for this pre-final. Coming round then to take the start. Kart number 3, Parveen Ajar. Kart number 1, Ian Blake on the front row. Jonathan Lister in kart 8. Kart 19 is Steve Brown. We're on board with Chris Hansen, and the inside line has got the whole shot into turn 1. Side by side with Matt Brooks. Burrell Smith runs out wide, and there's contact between Brooks, Hansen, Darren Teal, Ray Norris, but it's Parveen Ajar into Christmas first. And Ian Blake has got 2nd place ahead of Jonathan Lister. Oh, they're on the grass, off the kink again. Darren Teal, Matt Brooks, and that has collected Callum McGregor, and Steve Jennings has had to go off, and Jonathan Lister and Steve Brown are off, and Matt Brooks has gone through the tyres. Well, this one will be waved off. We'll have to go for a regrid and a restart of this pre-final. Well, we'll try this one again. It takes a little while to get back into grid position, so this final is now reduced to what is expected to be 10 laps. Once again on board with Chris Hansen briefly. Parveen Ajar controls the pace out of the last corner. Crowded there by Ian Blake. Bit of gamesmanship from the champion. It hasn't worked. Parveen Ajar has got the whole shot. It's a cleaner run through turn 1 this time. Hansen looking at the back of Steve Brown, and Jack Harding up to Christmas corner. Look how narrow they all go. You wouldn't think this is one of the widest kart circuits in the UK. Through the kink they come, onto Winkerman's, flat through the right-handed, downhill then to Ashby, and they're all going narrow once again. I'm sure we'll get back to the proper racing line eventually, but it won't be on this opening lap. They're bouncing down the grass and coming back on. Bit of arm waving as well from Stephen Jennings. They've all just about made it through Chapman's. Palmvere on the defensive to hold off Blake and Brown into the boot section. Is the crisscross on for Ian Blake? Not quite there, you had to think about it. Didn't quite have the momentum to go through. Especially with Steve Brown on his bumper. About a kart length clear of Jonathan Listener. Sweeping into turn 1, 2, uphill. And Palmvere down the white line on the inside and around the outside from Steve Brown. If he pulls that off, it's a good move, and it's worked. As Ian Blake was bottled up behind the leader, he's gone round the outside, down the inside of Ian Blake this time, Jonathan Listener, giving him just enough room to keep the spot across to Parker. And Hansen has been squeezed to the outside by Brooks. Left him just about a kart width, maybe. And he's lost a little bit of ground. Cone goes over. Now there's penalties for knocking cones over to protect these karts. There are penalties for hitting the curbs, and those cones delineate that. Ian Blake through to second, and I think Harding's going to have third, not quite there. But of course, Listener was sort of pinned there with a kart next to him, so may get away with that one. Matt Brooks trying to move on to the bumper of Jonathan Listener. He's just about there. There could be a chance up at Christmas. It's a favoured overtaking spot. Down the inside of Steve Brown. Jack Harding puts his nose in. Listener holds off Brooks, and this could be a chance for Hansen to get that spot back from Matt Brooks. Down to Ashby. He's been squeezed to the inside. It'd be a brave move from there to throw it down the inside on a narrow line into Ashby, even with all that concrete runoff. So it's Palmvere Jar leading from Ian Blake, Steve Brown, Harding on the defensive now to hold off Listener. Dan Milner looking to pick up a spot at the back of the field from Stuart Martin. Palmvere under pressure once again from Ian Blake. They should be turning laps of about mid-53s. They're turning 55.8 at the moment, and Ian Blake goes through. I'm not sure if Palmvere is getting on with his car. Down into turn 1. And I think around the outside has gone Steve Brown. Yes, he has. And this might be a chance for Jack Harding up to Christmas corner. Here they come. Blake going narrow, leaving just about a kart width to the inside. Down the inside of Jonathan Listener, side pod to side pod. Scott Martin goes through. Anwar Burrell-Smith goes through with him. Brown takes a think about it down into Ashby. Oh, that was a late move there from Jack Harding. He's got through, but he's put Palmvere on the grass. And it's put Brooks on his bumper as well. Down the inside, but a long way in, and it's 3 wide. Out of Chapman's. Chris Hansen on the grass. He's been squeezed there. Still running, and he makes it into the boot section, but he looks as though he could lose out to Anwar. Yes, he has. Anwar Burrell-Smith moves through into the last corner, and we move on to lap 5. The championship leader moves into the top 6. Ian Blake leads by 0.2 of a second ahead of Steve Brown. 0.6 off his bumper is Jack Harding in third. 1.5 seconds off the lead is this next group, led by Matt Brooks. Jonathan Lister goes through on Chris Hansen. Scott Martin tries to stick his nose in at the Inkerman's corner. He's got the high ground down into Ashby. Stephen Hicks coming through as well. Well, the road is going to go in Chris Hansen's favour. Now the crisscross on for Stephen. Not quite there. Darren Teal holds off Lee Clackett. Jay Elliott, Pete O'Connor ahead of Ray Norris. So O'Connor moves into 14th place. Unlike the heats where gaining positions is the name of the game, finishing positions do matter in this pre-final. Points to the championship. Additionally, lap times are important as well. They will set the grid for the main trophy final. So looking for a time, but looking for positions as well. And those 2 finals count towards the championship. All to play for. Anwar Burrell-Smith leading out Palmvere Jar in the fight for 5th place. Jonathan Lister, Scott Martin ahead here of Chris Hansen. Hansen running in 9th. He's got Stephen Hicks behind him in 10th. Looking to close across the slope, then turn left and downhill through Parker. dropping into Chapman's, and then up and down the back straight. Into the boot section, Ian Blake leading out, Stephen Brown, gap to Harding, gap to Brooks, gap to Anwar Bull Smith, Teal holding off Clackett, Elliott, O'Connor and Ray Norris. On to lap 7 of 10. Teal side by side with Clackett. Clackett around the outside of turn 1 and through before the second apex, but runs out wide. It's tricky in there and it's flat out. Somebody's offered Christmas. We saw the hands go in the air to acknowledge the yellow flag and stop the racing. Momentarily only though. Listener down the inside of Palmvina Jar and through goes Stephen Hicks. Oh, and he's put Hansen on the grass off the concrete, and that could be another position lost. Lee Clackett was behind him. So another lap goes in the books, and Ian Blake's lead is still just 0.16 of a second ahead of Stephen Brown. Jack Harding is a second off the lead now. Burrell Smith pulling clear of Listener. Najjar under pressure from Scott Martin. Stephen Hicks up at Christmas, and it looks as though Brown's looking for a way by. Now, Ian Blake has had a canny habit of winning, or certainly finishing well up in the pre-finals. That's what's keeping his championship challenge alive. His final 2 performance is not quite as good. Now, can he hold on to take a win here? Brown looks comfortable, looking for a mistake, or looking to pick his moment. Looks to the inside in the boot section, goes back in on the bumper. Now, is he trying to fake Ian Blake out here? Push him into a mistake? Make him go defensive when he didn't need to. Hicks goes through on Scott Martin, picking up places. Hicks moves into 8th place. We're on to the penultimate lap of this pre-final. Shortened due to the incident on the first start. Or incidents. Up at Christmas. Scott Martin trying to go through. Can he get it done? Oh, elbows out. Martin on the grass. A chance for Hansen maybe down at Ashby. He's gone to the inside. He'll run Stephen Hicks out wide. He did it to him and he puts him on the grass. We could almost imagine that one coming, and it did indeed. So Blake still ahead of Brown, who I have to say is looking very comfortable in this company. Crisscross on, not quite. Coming round to start the final lap then. Steve Brown looking comfortable, but it just might be his driving style behind the wheel, behind the reigning champion Ian Blake. Christmas corner, prime overtaking real estate. And look how narrow Blake's gone. It'll make him a little bit slow off the corner. A chance maybe now for Steve Brown to set him up. He's gone tight into increments. It's got to be coming down here at Ashby, and look how narrow Blake goes. It's the last lap, and look, Jack Harding and Matt Brooks may yet get into this fight. Another lap maybe. Chapman's. It's not there. I'm beginning to think that Ian Blake might hang on. Steve Brown takes a look over his shoulder. Blake goes narrow in the boot section. I think Ian Blake's going to take a second win of the season. A second pre-final. Whoa! Steve Brown gets his wheels over the curb. He can't force the pass. Could be a chance on a drag race to the line with Jack Harding. But it's Ian Blake ahead of Steve Brown, Jack Harding and Matt Brooks in 4th. Well, that pre-final was a cracking one, and in that final, Matt Brooks set the fastest lap with a 53.533, just 0.03 of a second faster than Ian Blake. He set that lap on lap 9, so the penultimate lap of the pre-final gets in pole position. And as a measure of the competitiveness in Club 100, the entire field are covered by less than 0.6 of a second. And that says something about the preparation of these karts and how even the competition is in Club 100. It really is just racing. In pole position then, Red Lodge winner Matt Brooks ahead of reigning champion Ian Blake. Championship leader Anwar Burrell-Smith on row 2 with Ray Norris. Lee Clackett and Jonathan Lissider on row 3. Steve Brown and Pete O'Connor on row 4. Stuart Martin and Parmveen Najjar round out the top 10. It's 23 karts in the field once again. It's sure to be hectic. This is for the main trophy. This is Club 100 from Whilton Mill. This is probably the slowest run up to the start we've seen today. There they go, the pace car pulls off. Matt Brooks controls the pace. Looking for a green light, and we're racing at Whilton Mill into turn 1. The pack charge in, it's Brooks, Blake, Burrell-Smith, Ray Norris. Steve Hicks got spat out the side of the pack there. We're coming uphill, I don't see him in the pack anymore. I think that's probably quite a heavy shunt into the tyre barrier. There was hands up at the back of the field. There's a abort flag out at Ashby. This is going to need a regrid. Red flag is out. Well, we've had a 7-minute delay, but I can tell you that Stephen Hicks is back in the field. They make them of stern stuff in Club 100 and karting. This is not professional football for namby-pambies. Green light is on. Matt Brooks gets the whole shot now. Anwar Burrell-Smith has gone through into second. Blake missed the start that time. Up to Christmas corner. Everybody still in this final this time. Burrell-Smith on the defensive to hold off Blake. Lissider trying to squeeze one down the inside there of Ray Norris. On board with J. Elliott over the grass at Inkermans. And Jack Harding's been pushed out the side, but still running down at Ashby. Well, the field is split in two. Everybody behind J. Elliott, and then the race up front ahead of him. The race settles down and it's Brooks, Burrell-Smith, Blake with a gap on Clackett, Norris gap then to Steve Brown, Jonathan Lissider around the boot section. End of lap 1, Brooks' lead is 0.3 of a second over Anwar Burrell-Smith and Blake. Stuart Martin ahead of Pete O'Connor. Martin up to 8th place from his grid 9 start. Hansen takes a look over his shoulder. O'Connor went to cover off Parmveen Najjar. Chance around the outside, not quite there. Brooks takes a look over his shoulder. Championship leader Anwar Burrell-Smith. In fact, Ian Blake as well, second in the championship. Indeed, with Brooks, once drop scores comes into play, you could be looking at the top 3 in the championship at the end of the season here. I wouldn't like to call which way it's going to go. It's too tight, it's too competitive. But on current form, with Steve Brown there ahead of Jonathan Lissider, these are the 4 men. Back on board with J. Elliott looking at the back of Scott Martin in 12th. This final reduced to 9 laps. So they're going to have to get on with it quick. Up to Christmas corner, Brooks takes a look over his shoulder, shows the outside of Anwar Burrell-Smith, up the inside with a bit of a dive bomb from Ian Blake. Side by side with Burrell-Smith, he's through. And look what's happened behind. It's now 2 by 2 with Ray Norris, Lee Clackett, Steve Brown down the inside to take the spot back from Anwar Burrell-Smith on Ian Blake. Points at Matt Brooks and says, look what we're doing, we're fighting and we're letting Matt get away. But everybody wants to be at the head of the queue, and that's the problem. Down in the boot section, Brooks pulling clear. Now it was 0.2 of a second on the last lap. This time it's 1.2 seconds is the advantage. And a long line of karts behind Anwar Burrell-Smith through turn 1. Freddie Gallagher working on the bumper of Jack Harding, who in turn is trying to find a way past Steve Bartlett. Hansen with O'Connor ahead of him in 10th. Bartlett loses out to Jack Harding. Down to Ashby. Lissider has a think about it. Stuart Martin throws it in late. That'll be side to side off the corner. They've both made it through. Lissider looking for a way past Lee Clackett, coming into Chapman's. Ray Norris keeps a watching brief behind. Nobody wants to throw it down the inside, only to lose the position if you can't make it stick. Follow my leader, Parmveen Najjar ahead of Pete O'Connor, looking for a way by, leaning in on Stuart Martin. He didn't have the apex and Martin's going to lean on him down into turn 1. Martin stays in 8th place. They're closing in on Matt Brooks. This is coming back together. It was 0.7 of a second at the line the last time. Brooks might be fast, but Anwar Burrell Smith is faster, and he's towing in Ian Blake. Parnveen Ajar narrow to hold off Martin. Martin will be on the outside for Parker. It won't work for him. Pete O'Connor might stick his nose in though. A chance for O'Connor maybe down into Chapman's. They're rubbing tyres. And here comes Chris Hansen over the curb. He'll be on the grass again on the exit. No, he's got his elbows out. He's taking that spot from Stuart Martin. Jay Elliott moves on to Stuart's bumper. Coming round to start lap 6. Matt Brooks' lead is down to 0.4 of a second. Anwar's coming with Ian and Steve Brown and Lee Clackett. Jonathan Lissett and Ray Norris are not out of this one. That's all the way down to 7th place. We've got a 7-handed fight here for the win and the podium positions and points in the championship. Steve Brown down the inside of Ian Blake. Late hard move and clean. Oh, but not behind. Steve Hicks, Jack Harding collecting Scott Martin off at Ashby. It's a tricky corner. There's always trouble at Ashby. Down the inside. Who's that on our left? It's Stuart Martin going through on Chris Hansen, and here comes Darren Teal. Oh, it's all very messy. Light touch from Teal on Martin into Jay Elliott. 2 of them are out. Teal is still running. The battle up front is on. Anwar has moved on to the bumper of Matt Brooks. The fight is on for the win here at Whilton Mill in the trophy final in Premier Class. Brooks very narrow, setting himself up for Anwar. Round the outside of the King is tricky. He's on the grass, and now is a chance for Brown and Blake, and it's 2 by 2 in the top 6. Burrell Smith is back in second, and Brooks has got away again. All this fighting, Brooks might just inherit this one by dint of the fact that he's managed to stay clear of it. A shake of the head from Ian Blake. I think he knows his chance for the win is gone. We're coming round to start the penultimate lap. Matt Brooks leads by 0.3 of a second from Anwar Burrell Smith. Steve Brown, Jonathan Lister, Ian Blake, Lee Clackett, Ray Norris. They've got a second's gap on Parnveen Ajar in 8th. Pete O'Connor, Darren Teal, if he hasn't got a penalty, is in 10th. Hansen in 11th. Up to Christmas corner and out. It's just a couple of kart lengths right now. Anwar is in with a chance of the win still. And I wouldn't discount Blake. He's ahead of Lee Clackett. He's moving on to the bumper of Jonathan Lister. Downhill from Parker into Chapman's. Matt trying to keep it tidy, but trying to keep it quick. Went a long way in there. Burrell Smith takes a look over his shoulder. Just trying to see how much space he's got to, if he can chance one somewhere. But now he has Steve Brown closing onto his bumper. So it's a risky game. Do you try to pass, or do you risk losing a couple of positions in trying to do it? Out of turn 1, it's on. Brooks is going to have to go narrow, surely. Yes, he is. Oh, he's trying to throw him a dummy. But Matt keeps his kart in the middle of the road. So it's stacking up. Matt Brooks is backing Anwar into Steve Brown and Jonathan Lister. And now Anwar's got a hold off Steve Brown, who's on the grass. And he'll be shuffled down the line. Can he get in to Parker before Clackett side by side? Elbows out now. It's on. Oh, down the inside, Clackett and Brown. We're just a few corners from the finish. And I think Matt Brooks has got this one. He's got a gap on Anwar. Here comes Jonathan Lister to the inside, can't get it done. Now will he open himself up to Ian Blake to try and get on the podium? Inside of the last corner, side by side, and Lister's just off the tyres. Brooks wins from Anwar Burrell Smith. Ian Blake is third.
Not only taking the runner-up spot, but taking the Baby Prem trophy as well. Congratulations, driver number 12, Anwar Burrell Smith. But 2-hour race winner then, 2 in a row. Fantastic. Fantastic. Our winner of round number 4 in the Premier class, number 10, Matt Brooks.
So Matt Brooks is a well-deserving winner at the 4th round of Club 100's 2015 championship. We'll have coverage of round 5 from Clay Pigeon on the 7th of June on this Club 100 YouTube channel. But stay tuned, because before that we have 3 more classes from Whilton Mill.
Another round of applause for our top 3 Prems. Well done, boys.